The bullet that grazed Miranda Kane's shoulder in the spring of 1878 wasn't what convinced her that love was a fantasy, but it certainly reinforced her belief that the only person she could rely on was herself. She pressed a hand against the wound, blood seeping between her fingers as she urged her mare forward through the sagebrush-covered terrain of Washington Territory. The town of Kennewick, still miles away across the dusty landscape. She had been traveling alone from Oregon, carrying what little remained of her father's estate after creditors had picked the bones of his failed cattle operation clean. Her mother had died when Miranda was just a girl, and her father had spent the last 15 years promising her that someday things would get better, that someday his love for the ranch would pay off, that someday his love for her would be enough to keep them fed. It hadn't been. He had died 3 months ago, leaving her with nothing but debts, and a sharp lesson about what love and dreams were worth in the real world. The outlaws who had ambushed her an hour back had gotten away with the small pouch of coins she had hidden in her saddlebag, money she had earned cleaning houses in Portland for 6 months straight. They had been more interested in the money than in her, thank God, but one of them had gotten trigger-happy when she had tried to ride away. Now she was bleeding and alone, and the late afternoon sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. Miranda had heard that Kennewick was a growing town, that there might be work there for someone willing to labor hard. She had no romantic notions about what awaited her, no dreams of being rescued or finding some fairy tale ending. At 23 years old, she had learned that survival meant keeping your head down, your expectations low, and your heart locked up tight where it could not be broken by promises that would never be kept. The ranch appeared like a mirage in the distance, sprawling across the valley where the Columbia River bent eastward. Split-rail fences marked orderly boundaries, and she could see cattle grazing in the golden grass, their forms dark against the fading light. She did not want to stop, did not want to owe anyone anything, but the wound on her shoulder was throbbing now, and she could feel the fever starting to climb through her body. She directed her mare toward the main house, a sturdy structure built from local timber with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. As she approached, a man emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on his work pants. He was tall and broad-shouldered, probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Madam," he called out, his voice carrying concern as he noticed the way she was swaying in the saddle. "Are you hurt?" "I am fine," Miranda said, but her voice came out weaker than she intended. "I just need directions to Kennewick." He was already moving toward her, his long strides eating up the distance between them. "You are bleeding. Let me help you down." "I said I am fine," she insisted, even as black spots began to dance at the edges of her vision. The man reached up anyway, his hands gentle but firm as he helped her dismount. The moment her feet hit the ground, her knees buckled, and she would have fallen if he had not caught her. She wanted to push him away, to maintain the independence that had kept her alive this long, but her body was not cooperating. "My name is Colton Chase," he said, supporting her weight easily as he guided her toward the house. "And you are about to pass out on my property, so I would appreciate it if you would let me at least get you inside before you do." Despite everything, Miranda felt a ghost of a smile tug at her lips. Miranda Kane. "Well, Miss Kane, let us get that shoulder looked at before you bleed all over my porch." The interior of the house was cleaner than she had expected, furnished simply but well. Colton guided her to a chair at a large wooden table and immediately began gathering supplies. She watched through half-closed eyes as he collected clean cloths, a basin of water and a bottle of whiskey. "This is going to hurt," he warned, kneeling beside her chair. "Everything hurts," she replied, too tired to maintain her usual guard. He worked with practiced efficiency, carefully cutting away the blood-soaked fabric of her shirt sleeve to expose the wound. Miranda hissed in pain as he cleaned it with the whiskey, but she did not cry out. She had learned long ago that tears solved nothing. "Bullet went clean through," Colton observed. "You are lucky. Another few inches to the right and we would be having a very different conversation." "Lucky," Miranda repeated, the word tasting bitter in her mouth. "Is that what this is?" He glanced up at her face, and she saw something in his expression that made her uncomfortable, a kind of gentle understanding that she did not want or need. "What happened?" "Outlaws. About 10 miles back, near the river crossing." His jaw tightened as he wrapped clean bandages around her shoulder. "How many?" "3. They took my money and left me with this." She gestured weakly to her shoulder. "Did you get a look at them? Would you recognize them again?" Miranda closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. "I would rather just forget the whole thing happened." "You should rest," Colton said, finishing with the bandages. "I have a spare room you can use. In the morning I will take you into Kennewick if that is where you are headed." "I cannot pay you," she said bluntly. "They took everything I had." "I did not ask you to pay me, I asked you to rest." She wanted to argue, to refuse his charity, but the truth was that she could barely keep her eyes open. "Just for tonight. I will be gone in the morning." "We will see," was all he said. Miranda woke to sunlight streaming through a window, warming her face. For a moment, she could not remember where she was, and panic fluttered in her chest until the events of the previous day came flooding back. She sat up carefully, testing her shoulder. It hurt, but the sharp, burning pain had dulled to a persistent ache. The room she was in was small but comfortable, with a real bed and clean linens that smelled like sage and sunshine. Her boots had been removed and placed neatly beside the door, and someone had draped a quilt over her while she slept. Through the window, she could see the ranch spreading out in all directions, organized and productive in a way her father's place had never been. She found her way to the main room where Colton was standing at the stove, cooking eggs and bacon. He looked up when she entered and she saw relief flicker across his features. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better. Thank you for the room." She stood awkwardly, unsure of what came next. She was not used to accepting help, and she did not like the feeling of being in someone's debt. "Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready." When she hesitated, he added, "Please, you need to eat something." Miranda sat, watching him move around the kitchen with easy competence. "Do you run this ranch alone?" "I have 3 men who work for me, but they are out checking fences today. I built this place from nothing over the past 5 years. It is not much, but it is mine." There was pride in his voice, the kind of pride her father had never earned because his dreams had always been bigger than his dedication. He set a plate in front of her, piled high with more food than she had seen in weeks. Her stomach growled loudly enough that they both heard it, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Eat," Colton said simply, taking a seat across from her with his own plate. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Miranda forced herself to ask, "Why are you helping me?" He looked at her thoughtfully, chewing slowly before answering. "Does there need to be a reason?" "In my experience, there is always a reason. People do not do things out of kindness. They do them because they want something in return." Colton set down his fork, his expression serious. "That is a hard way to look at the world." "It is a realistic way," she countered. "I have learned that expecting anything else just leads to disappointment." "Who disappointed you, Miranda?" The use of her first name felt too intimate, too familiar, and she bristled. "That is none of your concern." "You are right. I apologize." He returned to his meal, but she could feel him watching her from the corner of his eye. After breakfast, Colton insisted on checking her bandages. The wound looked better in the daylight, and she was relieved to see no signs of infection. As he rewrapped her shoulder, she studied his face, trying to understand what motivated a man to help a stranger without expecting anything in return. "What did you mean last night when you said everything hurts?" he asked quietly. Miranda looked away. "Nothing. I was tired and not thinking straight." "I do not believe that. I think you meant exactly what you said." She pulled away from him, standing up abruptly. "I need to get to Kennewick. I need to find work." "What kind of work are you looking for?" "Anything. Cleaning, cooking, laundry. I am not particular." Colton stood as well, crossing his arms over his chest. "I could use help here. My men are good with cattle and horses, but none of us can cook worth a damn, and this house could use a woman's touch." "I am not interested in charity," Miranda said sharply. "It is not charity. It is a job. I will pay you fair wages plus room and board. You would have your own space, and you would be safe here." Safe. The word hung between them like a promise, and Miranda wanted to believe it was possible. But safety was an illusion, something that could be taken away at any moment by violence or betrayal or simple bad luck. "I do not believe in fairy tales, Mr. Chase. I do not believe in being rescued or finding some perfect life on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. I do not believe in depending on anyone but myself." "I am not offering you a fairy tale," Colton said, his voice steady and calm. "I am offering you a job. What you do with it is up to you." She studied him for a long moment, searching for the catch, for the hidden motive that would reveal itself later. But all she saw was a man who seemed genuinely interested in helping her, and that terrified her more than the outlaws had. "1 month," she finally said. "I will work for you for 1 month and then I will move on." 1 month, he agreed, extending his hand. She shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. She told herself it was just a job, just a temporary arrangement until she got back on her feet. She told herself not to get comfortable, not to let her guard down, not to start believing that this could be anything more than what it was. But even as she made these promises to herself, she felt something shift inside her, something small and fragile that she thought had died with her father. She crushed it immediately, refusing to let hope take root. The first week passed in a blur of activity. Miranda threw herself into her work with fierce determination, cleaning the ranch house from top to bottom, organizing the kitchen, and preparing meals that actually tasted like food instead of the charred disasters Colton and his men had been subsisting on. The ranch hands, 3 weathered men named Samuel, James, and Robert, treated her with cautious respect after Colton made it clear that anyone who bothered her would be looking for new employment. They were good men, hard workers who loved the land and the cattle, and gradually Miranda began to relax around them. But it was Colton who occupied most of her thoughts, much to her annoyance. He was nothing like her father had been. Where her father had been all talk and dreams, Colton was quiet action. He was up before dawn every morning, working alongside his men, mending fences, tending cattle, doing the 1,000 tasks that kept a ranch running. He never promised more than he could deliver, never made excuses for failures, never blamed his problems on bad luck or other people. And he was kind, in a way that made Miranda deeply uncomfortable because she did not know what to do with kindness. He made sure she had everything she needed, respected her privacy, and never once suggested that she owed him anything beyond the work they had agreed upon. One evening, about 10 days after her arrival, Miranda was preparing dinner when Colton came in from the range, his shirt dusty and his face tired. He washed up at the basin and sat down at the table with a heavy sigh. "Long day?" she asked, stirring the stew she had made. One of the heifers got herself tangled in some old wire out in the east pasture. Took us 3 hours to get her free without injuring her further." He rolled his shoulders, wincing. "Without thinking," Miranda said, "you should soak in a hot bath. It will help with the soreness." He looked at her with surprise, and she realized how domestic the suggestion had sounded, how much like a wife instead of an employee. She felt heat rise to her face. "I just meant it is a practical solution," she said quickly, turning back to the stove. "Miranda," he said softly. "What?" She did not turn around, did not want him to see her face. "Thank you for caring enough to suggest it." She gripped the spoon tighter. "I do not care. I just do not want you too sore to work tomorrow, because then you will be under my feet all day." She heard him chuckle, a warm, rich sound that did something strange to her insides. Of course. Very practical. Later that night, after dinner had been eaten and cleaned up, Miranda found herself sitting on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The land here was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way, and she was beginning to understand why Colton loved it. He joined her on the porch, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one without asking and sat down in the chair beside hers. "Can I ask you something?" he said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "I suppose. What happened to make you stop believing in love?" Miranda was quiet for so long that she thought he might think she was not going to answer. "Finally," she said, "my father loved my mother. He loved her so much that, when she died, something in him died too. He spent the rest of his life chasing a dream of what they were going to build together, but he never had the strength to actually build it. He would work for a few weeks, make progress, and then he would fall apart again, drinking away what little money we had, making promises he could not keep." "That must have been hard," Colton said quietly. "He told me he loved me every day, but love did not feed me. Love did not keep the creditors from taking our land. Love did not stop him from dying and leaving me with nothing but debts and broken promises." She took a sip of her coffee, the bitter taste matching her mood. "So when people talk about love like it is some magical thing that makes everything better, I know they are lying. Love is just a pretty word people use to excuse their failures." Colton was silent for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I think maybe what you are describing is not love, but grief. Your father loved your mother, and when he lost her, he did not know how to go on. That does not mean love itself is worthless." "Then what is love worth?" Miranda challenged. "If it can be destroyed so easily, if it can leave you broken and useless, what good is it?" "Love is not about worth," Colton said. "It is not a transaction where you measure what you give against what you get. Real love is choosing to care about someone even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to walk away." "That sounds exhausting," he laughed. "It probably is. I have not experienced it myself, so I cannot say for certain." Miranda turned to look at him, surprised. "You have never been in love?" "No. I have been too busy building this ranch, I suppose, and I have never met anyone who made me want to risk my heart." He paused, then added, "Until recently." The air between them suddenly felt charged with meaning, and Miranda stood up abruptly. "I should go to bed. Morning comes early." "Miranda, wait. Good night, Mr. Chase." She retreated into the house before he could say anything else, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with fear. The second week brought a heat wave that baked the land and made everyone irritable. Miranda spent her days trying to keep the house cool and preparing meals that would not require heating the kitchen too much. She also spent a lot of time trying not to think about Colton's words on the porch, trying not to notice the way he looked at her, trying not to feel the pull of attraction that she absolutely did not want to acknowledge. One afternoon, when the heat was at its worst, Colton came in early, his face flushed and his breathing labored. "Are you all right?" Miranda asked, setting down the bread she had been kneading. Just hot. I will be fine. But he swayed as he said it, and she rushed to his side as he sat down heavily in a chair. You are overheated, she said, pressing a hand to his forehead. His skin was burning up. Stay here. She fetched cool water and clean cloths, then proceeded to wipe down his face and neck. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, and she tried to ignore how intimate the moment felt. You work too hard, she said, her voice coming out softer than she intended. That is rich coming from you, he replied without opening his eyes. You have not stopped moving since you got here. That is different. How? Because I am trying to earn my keep. You own this place. You could take a break if you wanted to. He opened his eyes then, looking directly at her. Is that why you work so hard, to earn your keep? Or is it because if you stop moving you might have to feel something? Miranda pulled her hand away as if burned. You do not know what you are talking about. Do I not? I watch you, Miranda. I see how you throw yourself into every task, how you never sit still, how you avoid being alone with your thoughts. You are running from something, and I think it is not outlaws or debt. I think it is yourself. Stop it, she said, her voice shaking with anger. You do not get to analyze me. You do not get to pretend you understand me just because you gave me a job. You are right, Colton said, standing up. He was still close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I do not understand everything about you, but I would like to, if you would let me. Why? She demanded. Why do you care? Because I am falling in love with you. The words hung between them like a gunshot, sharp and sudden and impossible to take back. Miranda stared at him, her heart racing, her mind screaming at her to run. No, she said. No, you are not. You cannot be. Why not? Because I do not believe in love. Because it is not real, and even if it were, it only leads to pain and disappointment. Because I am leaving in 2 weeks, and this was only ever supposed to be temporary. Then leave, Colton said, his voice rough with emotion. Walk away right now if that is what you want. I will not stop you, but do not tell me what I feel. Do not tell me that what is in my heart is not real just because you are scared. I am not scared, Miranda insisted, but her voice cracked on the words. Yes, you are. You are terrified. And I understand why. You have been hurt and you have learned to protect yourself by not caring about anyone. But Miranda, that is not living. That is just surviving. Tears were streaming down her face now, hot and angry and unwanted. Surviving is all I know how to do. Colton reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently cupped her face in his hands. Then let me teach you something different. Let me show you that love does not have to destroy. It can heal. It can build. It can make you stronger instead of weaker. What if you are wrong? She whispered. What if I let myself believe you and it all falls apart? Then we will deal with it together. That is what love means, Miranda. You do not have to face everything alone anymore. She wanted to pull away to maintain the walls she had spent years building. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of pretending she did not need anyone. And the way Colton was looking at her, like she was precious and worth fighting for, made something in her chest crack open. I do not know how, she admitted. I do not know how to do this. Neither do I, he said with a small smile. We will figure it out together. He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to stop him, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle and sweet, nothing like the harsh realities of the world she had known. It tasted like hope, like possibility, like maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong about love. When they pulled apart, Miranda was shaking. I am still scared. I know, but you are also brave. You survived things that would have broken most people. You can survive this too. What if I hurt you? She asked. What if I do not know how to love you back? Then we will work on it. Love is not something that happens all at once, Miranda. It grows over time if you let it. I am not asking you to give me everything right now. I am just asking you to stay, to give this a chance." She thought about her father, about how his love had turned to grief and then to destruction. But she also thought about Colton, about how he had built something solid and real from nothing, about how he kept his promises and did not make excuses. Maybe he was right. Maybe the kind of love her father had was not the only kind that existed. "I will stay," she said finally, "but I cannot promise you anything beyond that." "That is enough," Colton said, pulling her into his arms. "That is more than enough." The next 2 weeks were strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Miranda continued her work on the ranch, but the dynamic between her and Colton had shifted. They were careful with each other, both aware of how fragile this new thing between them was. He courted her in small ways. He picked wildflowers and left them on the kitchen table. He made sure she had a comfortable chair on the porch for the evenings. He talked to her about his plans for the ranch, asking her opinion and actually listening to her answers. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give, never demanded declarations or promises. And slowly, carefully, Miranda began to let herself feel. It was like learning to use a muscle that had been injured, painful and awkward at first, but gradually becoming easier. She allowed herself to smile when Colton came in from working. She let herself enjoy the warmth of sitting beside him in the evenings. She even, once or twice, reached for his hand first. The ranch hands noticed the change, of course. Samuel, the oldest of the three, pulled her aside one morning. "The boss seems happy," he observed, his weathered face creased with a smile. "Does he?" Miranda tried to sound casual. "Happier than I have seen him in the 5 years I have worked for him. You are good for him, Miss Kane." "I am not sure about that," she said honestly. "I am. Colton is a good man, one of the best I have known. He deserves someone who sees that, someone who appreciates what he has built here." Miranda thought about that conversation as she prepared dinner that evening. She did see what Colton had built, and not just the physical ranch. He had built a life based on integrity and hard work, a life where his word meant something. He was nothing like her father, and maybe that was the point. Maybe not all men were weak. Maybe not all love ended in destruction. That evening, after dinner, Colton asked her to go for a walk with him. They headed away from the house, toward a small rise that overlooked the river valley. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange and pink. "I wanted to show you something," Colton said when they reached the top of the rise. He pointed to a spot on the other side of the river where the land flattened out. "That is where I want to expand the ranch eventually. There is good grazing there and access to water. In a few years, if things go well, I could double my herd." "That is ambitious," Miranda said. "I like to have goals. It gives me something to work toward." He turned to look at her. "But lately, I have been thinking about different kinds of goals." "What do you mean?" "I mean that building a successful ranch is good, but it feels hollow if there is no one to share it with. I have spent 5 years focused on work, telling myself that was enough. But since you came here, I have realized what I was missing." Miranda's heart began to beat faster. "Colton, I know we have not known each other long. I know you are still figuring out what you want. But Miranda, I need you to know that when I think about the future now, you are in it. You are in every plan I make, every dream I have." "That is a lot of pressure," she said, trying to make light of the intensity of the moment. "I do not mean it to be. I am not asking you to decide anything right now. I just wanted you to know where I stand. I love you, and I want to build a life with you if you will let me." She looked out at the land he loved, at the empire he was building through sheer determination and hard work. She thought about what it would mean to be part of that, to put down roots here, to stop running. "I think I am starting to understand what love means," she said slowly. "Or at least what it could mean. You make me want to believe in things I thought were impossible. What things? Permanence. Safety, partnership. She turned to face him fully. You make me want to stay, Colton, not just for a few more weeks, but really stay, and that terrifies me. Why? Because what if I am not good at this? What if I disappoint you? He took her hands in his grip warm and steady. Miranda, you could never disappoint me. You are one of the strongest, most resilient people I have ever met. You have survived things that would have destroyed most people, and you are still standing. That is not weakness. That is incredible strength. I feel weak when I am with you, she admitted. Like all my defenses are crumbling. That is not weakness either. That is trust, and trust is the foundation of love. She looked up at him, this man who had somehow managed to slip past all her carefully constructed walls. I want to try, she said. I want to learn how to do this, how to love you the way you deserve. You already are, he said softly. Every day you choose to stay, every time you let me in just a little bit more, you are showing me love. It does not have to be perfect, Miranda. It just has to be real. He kissed her then, more deeply than before, and she let herself sink into it, let herself feel the desire and the tenderness and the promise of something more. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathless. Take me home, she said, and realized as she said it that she meant it. The ranch was home now. Colton was home. Summer turned to fall, and Miranda's 1-month trial period came and went without either of them mentioning it. She had become an integral part of the ranch, not just cooking and cleaning but helping with the books, planning for winter supplies, and even learning to work with the horses. The ranch hands treated her like family, and she found herself caring about them in return. But it was Colton who filled her thoughts, who made her heart race when he walked into a room, who taught her what it meant to be cherished. They had not been intimate yet, both of them wanting to wait until they were certain of their commitment to each other. But the tension between them grew stronger every day, a sweet ache that promised future fulfillment. One October morning, Miranda was working in the garden behind the house, harvesting the last of the vegetables before the first frost, when a rider approached the ranch. She straightened up, shading her eyes against the sun, and felt her blood run cold when she recognized one of the men from the group that had robbed her. She ran toward the house, her heart pounding. Colton was in the barn, too far away to reach quickly. The rider had seen her and was changing direction, heading straight for her. Well, the man said, dismounting. He was dirty and mean-looking, with cruel eyes and a sneer on his face. I know you. You are that girl from the river crossing. Get off this property, Miranda said, trying to keep her voice steady. Or what? You going to shoot me? I do not see a gun. He took a step closer. My partners and I have been having a run of bad luck lately. Thought maybe we would come back this way, see what we could pick up. There is nothing for you here. I do not know about that. This looks like a pretty prosperous spread. I bet the owner would pay good money to keep his property safe. And his woman. Before Miranda could respond, she heard the unmistakable sound of a rifle being cocked. She turned to see Colton standing about 20 feet away, his rifle aimed at the outlaw. You have about 5 seconds to get back on that horse and ride out of here, Colton said, his voice deadly calm. Or I will shoot you for trespassing. The outlaw's hand moved toward his gun, but Colton fired a shot into the ground near his feet. Do not even think about it. Next one goes through your knee. This is not over, the outlaw spat, but he mounted his horse. Yes, it is, Colton said. Because if I ever see you or your friends near my ranch again, I will not give you a warning shot. I will shoot to kill, and I will be well within my rights to do so. Now get out of here. The man rode off, and Miranda found herself shaking with reaction. Colton was beside her in an instant, pulling her into his arms. Are you all right? Did he hurt you? "No, I am fine. You got here in time." She clung to him, her face pressed against his chest. "How did you know?" "Samuel saw him riding in and came to get me. Are you sure you are all right?" She pulled back enough to look up at his face. She saw fear there, real fear, and something else. Love, fierce, protective, unwavering love. "I am all right because of you," she said. "Because you were here. Because I was not alone." "You will never be alone again," Colton promised. "Not as long as I am alive." That night, after they had told the ranch hands what had happened and posted a watch to make sure the outlaws did not return, Colton and Miranda sat on the porch in the gathering darkness. "I have been thinking," Miranda said quietly. "About what?" "About what you said, about building a life together, about the future." She took a deep breath. "I think I am ready to stop being scared." Colton turned to look at her, hope blazing in his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I love you. I think I have loved you for a while now, but I was too afraid to admit it, even to myself. But today, when I thought those men might hurt you, might take you away from me, I realized that being scared of love is nothing compared to the fear of losing you." "Miranda," he breathed, pulling her into his arms. "Say it again." "I love you, Colton Chase. I love your integrity and your strength and your kindness. I love the way you keep your promises and the way you have been patient with me. I love the life you have built here, and I want to be part of it. I want to build our future together." He kissed her deeply, passionately, pouring all his feelings into it. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathless. "Marry me," Colton said. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a few months, but I do not want to waste any more time. I want you to be my wife. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life." Miranda felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in years, they were tears of joy. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married in Kennewick 3 weeks later, in a small ceremony attended by the ranch hands, a few townspeople they had befriended, and the minister who served the small church in town. Miranda wore a simple dress she had made herself from fabric Colton had bought her as an engagement gift. It was not fancy, but when Colton saw her walking toward him, the look in his eyes made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. "I, Colton Chase, take you, Miranda Kane, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice strong and clear. "I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams, and to build a life with you based on trust and respect. I promise that you will never face anything alone again." Miranda's voice shook slightly as she spoke her own vows. "I, Miranda Kane, take you, Colton Chase, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you with all my heart, even though you had to teach me what that means. I promise to trust you, to stand by your side through good times and bad, and to build our future together. You have shown me that love is not a weakness but a strength, and I will spend the rest of my life showing you that your faith in me was not misplaced." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Colton kissed her with such tenderness that Miranda felt something in her heart finally, completely heal. The scared, broken girl who had ridden onto his ranch 4 months ago was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth and was loved for exactly who she was. The celebration was simple but joyful. The ranch hands had prepared a feast, and there was music and dancing as the sun set over the land that was now truly her home. Samuel pulled Miranda aside at one point, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I am glad you stayed," he said gruffly. "Colton is like a son to me, and it does my heart good to see him so happy." "Thank you for accepting me," Miranda said, surprising herself by hugging the old cowboy, "for making me feel like I belong here." "You do belong here, Mrs. Chase. This ranch needs you just as much as Colton does." That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, Colton and Miranda finally consummated their marriage. He was gentle and patient, taking his time to learn what pleased her, making sure she felt safe and cherished. For Miranda, who had spent so long believing that she would never let herself be vulnerable with anyone, it was a revelation. There was power in this kind of intimacy, in choosing to trust someone completely. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Colton traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what? For taking a chance on me, for letting me love you, for becoming my wife." Miranda turned to face him, her hand resting over his heart. "You changed my life, Colton. You changed everything I thought I knew about love and trust, and what it means to build a future with someone. I thought I was broken beyond repair, but you showed me I was just waiting for the right person to help me heal." "We healed each other," he said. "I did not even realize how lonely I was until you came into my life. I was so focused on building the ranch that I forgot to build a life. You reminded me that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with." She kissed him, slow and sweet, and then settled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Tell me about the future," she said. "Tell me about the plans you have for us." Colton's hand moved to stroke her hair, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Well, first we are going to expand the herd like I told you about. And I want to build a bigger barn, maybe get some more horses. But more than that, I want to fill this house with children. I want to teach our sons and daughters about hard work and integrity. I want to build something that will last beyond our lifetimes." "Children," Miranda said, testing the word. She had never let herself think about having children, too convinced that she would never find a partner worth building a family with. "Is that something you want?" Colton asked, and she could hear the hope and slight worry in his voice. "Yes," she said, realizing it was true. "Yes, I want that. I want to build a family with you to create something better than what I had growing up. I want our children to know what real love looks like, to see parents who work together and support each other." "They will," Colton promised. "We will make sure of it." Winter came to Washington Territory with a vengeance, bringing snow and cold winds that howled across the open range. But inside the ranch house, warmth and love kept the darkness at bay. Miranda discovered that she had a talent for ranch management, helping Colton make decisions about when to sell cattle and how to invest their profits. He valued her opinion, treating her as a true partner in every aspect of their life together. The ranch hands continued to be a source of support and companionship. James taught Miranda to ride better, helping her gain confidence in the saddle. Robert showed her how to read weather patterns, skills that would prove invaluable in the years to come. And Samuel became something of a grandfather figure, always ready with advice or a kind word when needed. By the time spring arrived, bringing new life to the land, Miranda had fully embraced her role as Colton's wife and partner. She no longer questioned whether she deserved happiness or whether love was real. She lived it every day in the way Colton looked at her, in the life they were building together, in the dreams they shared for the future. One warm May evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Miranda reached for Colton's hand. "I have news," she said, unable to keep the smile from her face. He turned to her, his eyes searching her face. "What is it?" "I am with child. We are going to have a baby." The joy that blazed across Colton's face was something Miranda knew she would remember for the rest of her life. He pulled her into his arms, holding her gently as if she were made of glass. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I am sure. The doctor in Kennewick confirmed it yesterday when I went to town. The baby should arrive in late autumn." Colton kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, unable to contain his happiness. "This is the best news I have ever received. You have made me the happiest man alive, Miranda." "We are going to be parents," she said, the reality of it washing over her. "We are going to have a child to love and raise. And we will do it right," Colton said firmly. "Our child will know every day that they are loved. They will grow up seeing what a strong partnership looks like. They will never doubt that they are wanted and cherished." Tears streamed down Miranda's face, but they were tears of joy. "I never thought I would have this. I never thought I would be this happy." "Get used to it," Colton said with a grin, "because I plan to spend the rest of my life making you happy." The pregnancy was not easy. Miranda suffered from severe morning sickness in the early months, and Colton hovered over her like a worried hen, much to her amusement and occasional irritation. But she also loved how protective he was, how he made sure she had everything she needed, how he talked to her belly and made plans for their child. As summer progressed, Miranda's belly grew round, and she had to adjust her work on the ranch. She could no longer do the heavy lifting or spend hours on her feet, but she found other ways to contribute. She took over more of the bookkeeping, corresponded with buyers and suppliers, and began planning for the expansion Colton wanted to make to the ranch. The ranch hands were excited about the coming baby, each of them promising to teach the child various skills. Samuel claimed first rights to teaching horseback riding. James wanted to teach fishing, and Robert insisted he would teach the child to read the stars. Their enthusiasm made Miranda realize how much they had become family, how this child would grow up surrounded by people who cared. In late October, as the leaves turned gold and red, Miranda went into labor. It was a long, difficult birth that lasted through the night and into the next day. Colton stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, encouraging her when she felt like she could not go on. Finally, as the sun set on the second day of her labor, their son was born. He came into the world with a lusty cry that made everyone in the house smile with relief. The doctor placed the baby in Miranda's arms, and she looked down at the tiny, perfect face of her child. "He is beautiful," she whispered, exhausted but exhilarated. Colton was crying openly, staring at his son with wonder. "He is perfect. You are perfect. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you for this gift." They named him Christopher Charles Chase, and from his first day, he was the center of their world. Colton was a devoted father, getting up for nighttime feedings, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours just holding his son and marveling at the miracle of his existence. Miranda discovered a depth of love she had not known was possible. Loving Colton had taught her that love was real, but loving Christopher showed her that love could be infinite, that there was always room in her heart for more. She watched Colton with their son and saw the kind of father she had always wished her own had been, present and engaged and completely committed. The first year of Christopher's life was filled with sleepless nights and endless joy. He was a happy baby, quick to smile and curious about everything. The ranch hands doted on him, taking turns holding him and entertaining him. Samuel made him a wooden rattle, James carved him a set of toy horses, and Robert sewed him a quilt that he would keep his entire life. As Christopher grew from baby to toddler, Miranda and Colton worked together to expand the ranch. They purchased the land across the river that Colton had pointed out years earlier, doubling their grazing area. They hired 2 more ranch hands to help manage the increased workload. The ranch prospered, becoming one of the most successful in the region. But more than the material success, it was the love and partnership that defined their life together. Colton and Miranda made all major decisions together, valued each other's opinions, and supported each other through challenges and triumphs. They showed Christopher what a strong marriage looked like, how two people could work together to build something meaningful. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they watched Christopher play in the yard under Samuel's watchful eye, Colton pulled Miranda close. "You remember when you told me you did not believe in love?" he asked. Miranda smiled. "I was so sure I was right. I thought love was just a pretty lie people told themselves." "What changed your mind?" She turned to look at him, this man who had patiently, persistently, lovingly shown her what real love meant. "You did. Every day, in 1,000 small ways, you showed me that love was real. You kept your promises. You treated me as an equal partner. You were patient when I was scared and supportive when I was struggling. You loved me not despite my flaws but including them." "You made it easy," Colton said. "You are the strongest, most amazing woman I have ever known. Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life." "I want another baby," Miranda said suddenly. Colton's eyes widened with surprise and delight. Yes, Christopher needs a sibling and I want to give him one. I want to fill this house with children and love and laughter. I want to build the family I always dreamed of but never thought I could have." He kissed her deeply, and she could feel his joy and love radiating through the touch. "Then let us get started on that." 2 years later, Miranda gave birth to twin daughters, Emma and Alina. The girls were identical in appearance but completely different in temperament. Emma was bold and adventurous, while Alina was thoughtful and gentle. Christopher, now 4 years old, took his role as big brother seriously, always looking out for his sisters. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Colton's reputation for fair dealing and quality cattle spread throughout the territory. They were able to help other ranchers who were struggling, offering advice and sometimes financial assistance to those who needed it. Miranda remembered what it felt like to be desperate and alone, and she made sure that no one in their community had to face hardship without support. As the years passed, their family grew to include 2 more children, another son they named Matthew and a daughter they named Grace. The house that had once seemed so large was now filled with the noise and chaos of 5 children, 3 dogs, and an ever-changing parade of ranch hands who came and went with the seasons. But through it all, the love between Miranda and Colton remained constant. They still sat on the porch together in the evenings, watching the sunset and talking about their dreams. They still made each other laugh, still supported each other through difficulties, still found ways to show their love every single day. Christopher grew into a young man who embodied the best qualities of both his parents. He had Colton's work ethic and integrity, and Miranda's resilience and determination. The twins were nearly grown, preparing to start their own adventures in the world. Matthew was learning the ranch business from his father, and Grace was the baby of the family, indulged by everyone but never spoiled. One evening, when Miranda was 50 years old and Colton 54, they sat together on the porch that had witnessed so many important moments in their life together. Their children were all inside, the older ones helping with dinner while the younger ones did their homework. "Do you ever regret it?" Miranda asked, leaning against Colton's shoulder. "Regret what?" "Spending so much time convincing a stubborn woman that love was real." Colton laughed, the sound still making her heart flutter after all these years. "Not for a single second. Every moment I spent breaking down your walls, every day I showed you what love could be, all of it was worth it. You are worth it, Miranda. You have always been worth it." She looked out at the ranch, at the empire they had built together through hard work and dedication and love. She thought about the girl she had been, riding onto this property with a bullet wound and a heart full of bitterness. She thought about how Colton had seen past her pain to the woman she could become, how he had loved her patiently and persistently until she learned to love him back. "I was so wrong," she said softly. About love, about what it means, about what it can do. I thought it was weakness, but it is the strongest thing I have ever known. I thought it would destroy me, but instead it saved me." "We saved each other," Colton corrected. "I was building a ranch, but you taught me to build a life. You gave me a family, a purpose beyond just making money and acquiring land. You made me a better man, Miranda. And you made me believe in miracles," she said. "You made me believe in love." Inside the house, they could hear their children laughing, the sound of family and home and everything they had created together. Christopher's deep voice mixed with the twins' laughter. Matthew was probably teasing Grace about something, and the whole beautiful chaos of it made Miranda's heart swell with gratitude. "Come on," Colton said, standing and offering her his hand. "Let us go have dinner with our children." Miranda took his hand, the same hand she had shaken when she agreed to work for him all those years ago, the hand that had held hers through childbirth and hardship and triumph. She followed him into the house, into the warmth and light and love that filled every corner. Years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges, but always, always, love. Christopher married a good woman and started his own ranch nearby. The twins both married as well, Emma to a banker from Kennewick and Alina to a teacher from Seattle. Matthew took over more responsibility on the ranch as Colton got older, and Grace surprised everyone by becoming a doctor, one of the first female physicians in Washington. Through it all, Miranda and Colton remained devoted to each other. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch had become one of the most successful in the entire region, a testament to what two people could build when they worked together with love and respect. On a warm summer evening, when Miranda was 73 and Colton 77, they sat on their porch one last time. Colton had been ill for several months, his heart weakening despite the doctor's best efforts. But he had insisted on sitting outside, wanting to watch one more sunset with the woman he loved. "I am not afraid," he said, his hand trembling slightly as it held hers. "Neither am I," Miranda said, though tears streamed down her face. "Because of you, I learned that love does not end. It continues in our children and grandchildren, in the life we built together, in every moment we shared." "I would do it all again," Colton said, his voice weak but determined. "Every single moment, every challenge, every triumph. I would choose you every single time, Miranda." "And I would choose you," she said, leaning over to kiss him gently. "You changed my life, Colton Chase. You taught me what love really means, and I have loved you every day since the moment I was brave enough to admit it." They watched the sun set together, painting the sky in brilliant colors over the land they had worked so hard to build. And when Colton's hand went slack in hers, Miranda held it for a long time, memorizing the feel of it, honoring the man who had loved her so completely. She did not cry out or collapse with grief. Instead, she sat with him as the stars came out, thanking him for everything he had given her, for every moment they had shared. She had learned from him that love was not weak, and she would honor his memory by being strong, by continuing to live the life they had built together, by showing their children and grandchildren what real love looked like. Miranda lived another 7 years after Colton died, years filled with family and purpose. She ran the ranch with Matthew's help, making sure it continued to prosper. She taught her grandchildren about their grandfather, about the man who had taken in a broken, bitter woman and loved her until she learned to love herself. When she died peacefully in her sleep at the age of 80, her children gathered to bury her next to Colton on the hill overlooking the ranch. Christopher, now an old man himself, stood at her grave and told the gathered family about his parents' love story. "My mother used to say she did not believe in love," he said, his voice strong despite his years. But my father spent his lifetime changing her mind. And in doing so, he showed all of us what real love looks like. It is patient and kind. It is choosing each other every single day. It is building something together that lasts beyond a lifetime. They gave us that gift, and it is up to us to carry it forward. The ranch continued for generations, passed down through the family, each generation learning about the love story that had started it all. The story of a bitter young woman who had given up on love, and a patient rancher who showed her that love was worth believing in, worth fighting for, worth building a lifetime around. And if you visit the hill overlooking the Columbia River Valley in Kennewick, Washington, even today you can see two headstones side by side. The inscriptions are simple: Colton Charles Chase, beloved husband, father, and grandfather, and Miranda Kane Chase, who learned to believe in love. Their legacy lived on, not just in the land or the cattle or the successful ranch, but in every marriage, every family, every moment of love shared by their descendants. Because Colton and Miranda had proven that love was not a weakness or a fantasy. It was the strongest, most real thing in the world, capable of healing the deepest wounds and building the most enduring legacies. And so their story ended not with sadness, but with the profound joy of a life well lived, a love fully realized, and a family blessed beyond measure. The girl who did not believe in love had become the woman who embodied it, and the rancher who set out to change her mind had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams, creating a love story that would inspire generations to come.